Hello, hello, hello. This is your boy Brandon Cryer, aka EF Hunting of Entertainment, and we are back with another review. And this is a big one, the one that everybody has been waiting for. Honestly, well, let me speak for myself. The one that I have been really waiting for. We got the House of the Dragon premiere, season 1, episode 1, up for review, and I'm excited to get into this one. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you think you'd be interested in House of the Dragon reviews and breakdowns, subscribe to the Brandon Cryer Network. I will be doing reviews for the now that the series is out. I will be doing reviews for all the episodes. So subscribe to the Brandon Cryer Network for all of those breakdowns. And like I said, I'm really excited to get into this. Now, Game of Thrones, I honestly I consider myself like an OG Game of Thrones watcher. I wasn't from the very beginning, or I wasn't a book reader, but to me, and I obviously, like, there's my own kind of like criteria, and I don't get mad at, or I'm not mad, or like I don't like put people down for hopping on Game of Thrones like really late when it was really popular, and because honestly, like I love like sharing like this part of like my interest with other people. So like the more people that were on the show, the more people there were to talk about it. So I love that there were people just constantly being added onto the Game of Thrones fandom, right? But I do consider myself like an OG watcher. I kind of came in like mid second season. So second season was like midway through, and I remember this guy that I worked with when I was lifeguarding started bringing up the show and put me on, and he was like, I actually have season 1 on a box set, like on disc, like I could let you borrow it if you want to like catch up. And I was like, yeah, sure, like that would be a perfect way for me to catch up. Lo and behold, I watched season 1, and like I'm hooked. Like, see, I was just absolutely hooked. Like, and then from that point, it was just me going over to my friend's house because he had HBO at the time, and we were just watching it together every Sunday. Mid season 2 was going on, so this would have been by the time I think I went and I caught it myself with season 2. Me and him started watching season 3 together, right? So honestly, like when I watched season 1, like I was absolutely hooked. The political intrigue and just like the game, like the name implied of the show, people just playing a game for the seat on the throne, literally. But it was some of the most intriguing just shit that was just put on TV. Like I don't know, like I just remember going back to that first season being like, what am I watching? Like this shit is so interesting. It has me just like on the edge of my seat every single episode. Like I don't know what it was, but it like season 1 Game of Thrones, and I'm not even getting into House of the Dragon yet. Like I'm just rehashing Game of Thrones, but this is just kind of giving me flashbacks to that moment because of the feel that House of the Dragon was actually giving me. Right. So let me get into House of the Dragon, like the episode that actually came out that we've all recently watched. So I know a lot of people hated on the ending of Game of Thrones, like the last couple seasons. I obviously am just like a big Game of Thrones fan. I know, like, I didn't love the ending seasons, but I didn't mind them. I didn't mind them. Like, I really do think up until like season 6, it was really strong. And then maybe the last couple seasons was where it faltered a little bit. But especially seasons 1 to like 4 are really strong. Some of the strongest TV out there, like ever. Like season 1 especially, like I will stand on that mountain about season 1 being some of the best TV that I've ever seen. That Game of Thrones season 1. And I keep diverging from House of the Dragon, but House of the Dragon, like I mentioned in my trailer reaction for it, that I really do think that they're going to get back to that feel. And as much as it's involving the Targaryens and their lineage, and obviously that means dragons, I really don't think they're going to spend a lot of time with the dragons, maybe until later. And we saw, and to me, like the episode 1 was a good indicator of that, because you barely saw any dragons. You saw Rhaenyra flying on I can't remember that. I'm still learning names of all the characters, because Game of Thrones, there's bear characters, bear families, and all that, right? So it's gonna take me a while to get all the characters. So Rhaenyra flies in on one dragon, and then you see Daemon Targaryen, played by Matt Smith, fly off on his dragon. His dragon looked fucking big. Like honestly, like I'm excited to see when they obviously get unleashed and there's going to be like dragon on dragon battles and all that good stuff. But for now, like, I'm really interested in just the civil war that seems like it's going to take place. The show starts again. Let me start with the show looks a lot cleaner. Obviously, it's probably a little bit more money put into it. It's years later, so effects are better, but the show looks a lot cleaner and visually than when it did. Honestly, like, I like that the way they shot it. It took up the entirety of my whole screen, so it looked amazing. And from the beginning of the episode, it really did set the tone of where they were going. The show started with just an intro of basically kind of introducing where in the time period it's laid out. It like in comparison to the Game of Thrones series, that it took place 172 years before I think Daenerys was born, I think it said, or before she took the throne. I think it was before 172 years before she was born. And then it showed Viserys's I can't remember so Viserys is the king right now. So his dad, there was basically showing a moment where there was an opportunity for Viserys's sister, like the eldest daughter, to become queen, the first queen. And there was obviously opposition to that. We obviously saw some of that in the Game of Thrones series on how the realm opposes that. And then the other option was Viserys, the son. And like, I'm trying to piece all this together myself. You know what I mean? And again, and I'm excited myself too. So I'm trying to get all this together. There was the opportunity for each of them to be appointed, and the realm went with Viserys. And it kind of just showing that history repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself, because obviously we see the same stuff happen in Game of Thrones. But in this present day of House of the Dragon, we see that now that Viserys has been ruling for 9 years, I think it said, a lot of his advisors are coming to him being like, we need a succession plan in order, so that if the time comes that you pass, the realm's not in chaos. Like, we really need to have this like in concrete. So again, like, this is Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Like, Game of Thrones is really based around succession and changing of the thrones when the current king passes. Literally, like, that is what started off season 1, like the conflict in Game of Thrones, was the fact that there was the king Robert Baratheon died, and that Ned Stark knew the heir to the throne was actually not the right heir to the throne. And it popped off everything. That's honestly the basis of Game of Thrones. So the fact that we're back here, it's like, that is always the basis for all of these wars and beefs between all of these factions and peoples. It's always just trying for the throne. So I like that they got back here. They got back to that tone and point of the show, an aspect of the show. But not only that, it's like they kind of took it a step further, where not only is it who's going to be who's the rightful heir to the throne and who got appointed, which we see, spoiler alert, we see by the end of the episode that Rhaenyra, Viserys' daughter, gets appointed to be the queen going forward, when Daemon, his brother, because he had no son, thought that he would be the heir, was upset by that. So now we see that, again, not only is there discussion about succession, and there was this whole scene where there's this whole part of the major, like, part of the episode where his wife was pregnant, and he had a dream that the wife was pregnant with a son. So all of the succession talk would have kind of been squashed once he had the son. And then there was obviously information that came out, like the wife started expressing and explaining, obviously for the audience to get that she's had a lot of miscarriages, and she's sorry that she hasn't been able to give him a son. And that if I do another miscarriage, like, I don't know if I could do another one. And the maesters basically come to him and they're like, it's like, if we leave both of them now, there's a chance both of them could die, but we could potentially save the baby, but your wife's not going to make it. So he automatically because of his dream, he thought that it was a son. He was like, let's save the baby, and they ended up giving her like a C-section, and she ends up bleeding out and passes away. The son ends up surviving for a bit, but we find out later on that the son ends up passing away too. And we have this whole scene where Rhaenyra's dragon ends up burning the mom and the young baby brother, because obviously, like, they're dead. They're burning them, right? They're burning the bodies out of respect. They're at a whole ceremony, and then that's where, again, like, because the son didn't make it, we see that there's going to be problems and just conflict with regards to the throne. But like I said before, where they turned it up a notch is not only is it people vying for the thrones, who's the heir, who's the right heir, whatever, but now it's like civil war within families, right? So that's the thing, right? Whereas like before it was kind of like other families kind of vying for the thrones, but now it's like members within an individual family. The Targaryens, you're going to see kind of be conflicting and battling for the throne a bit, in a sense. So that's going to be really, really, really interesting to get into. And we also see that there's also like some kind of flirtatious stuff going on between Rhaenyra and Daemon. And, you know, like that's Game of Thrones. You know, is it really Game of Thrones when we don't have no relative on relative action? You know, so I feel like that's going to be paid off, some Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister kind of business. You know, I feel like that's going to be popping off down the line somewhere, somewhere. But yeah, like I'm excited to be back in this universe, in this world of Westeros. Again, like I said, I do consider myself like an OG Game of Thrones watcher, and I know there may be people watching from the beginning that may roast me and be like, yo, you're not an OG, man, get out of here. But I do consider myself like at least an early adopter of Game of Thrones, early adopter of Game of Thrones. So I'm excited to be back in this universe. Like I said, it looks great. The political intrigue and political drama seems like it's at an all-time high, and we're right back to it. Even though, like I said, near the last seasons of Game of Thrones, even though it was heavily involved with regards to finding out Jon Snow's background and his lineage and his connection to the Targaryens and his potential heir and his potential claim to the throne. There was that stuff sprinkled in, but obviously there was a lot of the White Walker focus and the danger at the wall focus that kind of took precedent over who's going to be sitting on the throne. Because again, I don't mean to go back to Game of Thrones, but we see that once the White Walkers and that's kind of dealt with, what's the big main problem that we have to go back to? Who's going to be sitting on the throne? At the end of the day, Game of Thrones ended with who was going to be sitting on the throne. And, you know what I mean? Obviously, it ended up being Bran, but at the end of the day, that is Game of Thrones. That is the heart of Game of Thrones. Who is sitting on that iron chair, right? And again, foreshadowing, we see that Viserys actually gets cut by the chair. And there's obviously like this like myth that like the more that the chair cuts you, the more like it thinks that you're not supposed to be in the chair, right? And we see in the episode that he actually has like this wound on his back that's like getting infected and it won't go away and it's getting really bad. And you can just foreshadow that he's going to get sicker and sicker and, you know what I mean, stuff's going to happen and he's going to end up passing, and then there's going to be that fight for the throne. Who's going to be on the throne? Rhaenyra or Daemon, and what's going to be popping off? Who else? What other outside families are going to get involved to try and put their influence on who's going to be sitting on there, or if they're going to try and get involved themselves to try and get on the throne. So good pilot episode, man. Good pilot episode. Got a lot of exposition. It set the scene. It set a lot of just like what we're going to be expecting from the rest of the season and just the vibe and tone of the show. So like I said, I really enjoyed the episode. I'm excited to be back. Like I keep repeating, but I'm excited to be back in Westeros watching these episodes. And with my new channel up and running, I'm excited that now that House of the Dragon's back, obviously I'm going to be reviewing She-Hulk and all these other episodes, but I'm excited that I'm going to be able to review House of the Dragon episodes and really get deep into like the lore and deep into just like the political drama and intrigue that this show presents for us. And I'm just really excited and ready to discuss it with everybody. So I hope you guys are ready to get more House of the Dragon episode reviews. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you think you'd be interested in House of the Dragon, sorry, I keep saying Game of Thrones, but if you'd be interested in House of the Dragon episode reviews going forward, subscribe to the Brandon Correa Network. I promise you will not regret it. I probably, at some point, I might be getting like some of my boys involved, maybe some some Zoom convos to get into more discussions and breakdowns about the House of the Dragon deep dives. Maybe get into some of that over Zoom. Some stuff I'm trying to just video ideas I'm going to be adding to the channel. But if you'd be interested in Game of Thrones reviews, House of the Dragon reviews, subscribe to the Brandon Correa Network. If you'd be interested in trailer reactions, She-Hulk reviews, Andor episodes coming, all that good entertainment talk, sports. We got the NBA season starting in a bit. Football season is around the corner, so we're going to be getting some football talk, especially on the Brandon Correa podcast. So if you like long form podcasts, the video form is on here. You can listen to the audio version on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm telling you, the Brandon Correa Network is where all that good reviews and breakdowns is going to be. So subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of episode 1, if you're excited for the rest of the season, and who you think is going to be the first one to kind of make a move, a kind of political backstabbing move for the throne. So let me know in the comments. Appreciate you for watching. Catch you next time.